It's a hello and welcome to the start of something new, something exciting. It's Wingspan Full Court Africa coming to you live for the first time. It's episode one. I'm your host, Quintin Denyssen, and I'm not alone. I am joined by one of Africa's finest basketball minds, not just a scout, but more than that. He's an advocate for the growth of the game on the continent, joined by Jacques Vandescure, and we are going to delve into African basketball as it's never been done before. So, welcome. Looking forward to it. Hey, Jacques, how you doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm excited. Like you said, first episode, people don't understand. We've been talking about basketball for a long time, following the BAL for the last 5 years, and this is great, man. Get to have a chance to start our own podcast to talk about basketball. I'm excited for both of it, but also hopefully excited for whoever is going to take the time to listen to this podcast because we really want to deep dive into basketball, African basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of preempted my first question, and it's the why. Why are we doing this, Jacques? What are we about? So maybe we just give people in the first episode a little bit of insight as to what we're about to do.
No, and we have the love, we have the passion, but the game of basketball is growing in Africa. It's been amazing the last. I mean, we saw the NBA office, we see the junior NBA, we see the first NBA game, with NBA players on the continent in Joburg. We've seen so many things, and I think it's just something we always wanted to do. It's just deep dive and start talking basketball. Something that I've seen is, and I don't want to sound negative, but many times when we talk about African basketball, we just stay on the outside layer. We never deep dive and we never share what we think about the game, talking about the players, and sharing what we think. And you and I, with the BA, that's what we do every time. Every time we get ready to work on a game, we talk about players, matchup, and all that. So just wanted to share what we think to the audience out there that is excited to watch the games, the BAL, the Afro Basket, and everything else. That's what we're here for.
And above and beyond that, we also want to highlight some of the young and up and coming talent that's available on the continent. So where we can, we will showcase players that you should look out for because the talent on the continent is undeniable. We've seen it with the development of players like Kaman West and Ulrich Chomche and a couple of others that we can mention, not only from the NBA Academy Africa, but we will go into each country because that's part of what Jacques does. With Wingspan Scouting, he goes across into every event looking for talent on the continent. So we'll just tell you who's hot, who's not, and what you need to look out for, because this might be a platform for the future. I'm not going to be too harsh on the young ones, though.
The game is bright. Like you said, a lot of potential on the continent. We've known that, we've heard it for so many years, but now we're starting to see how it looks like. Kaman Maluach, top 15. Ulrich Chomche, first ever African player drafted from the African continent, but there are a lot more players all around the continent. BWB, Afrobasket. They're traveling to Spain, Italy, France are gonna be in the NCAA. So let's talk about all those kids, man. All those nephews that we have that are getting the game right, and also all the people behind the curtains that are helping those young kids moving forward.
Yeah, we're going to keep the conversations deep. We're going to get into basketball. This is not surface level. We are actually trying to delve a little bit deeper into what's behind the curtain, and that is Wingspan Full Court Africa. So, that being said, Jacques, I think it's time for us to actually get into some real basketball because what's happened in the last week is that we now know all the spots and all 12 teams that are going to be participating in the BAL in 2026, and we just came off the Division East Elite 16. Division West was just a little bit earlier. And I think it's appropriate that we start to look at, the teams because what we've seen in the past, especially when it comes to the BAL, is the teams that take part in the Elite 16 and the rosters and the way that they currently look are not going to be the teams that are going to be part of the
Hmm.
BAL in 26. The team names stay the same, but the rosters usually take a big change. But maybe that'll be a little bit different in 2026. I feel like when you look at the way the qualifiers were done, teams were highly intentful with keeping some chemistry, a lot of focus on some local players. It's really great to see that, but also just where we're going. I think it's going to be a very competitive 2026.
Yeah, you said it, and I couldn't agree more about the fact that people get ready for the road to BAL, and it's a war, and then they get into the Elite 16. But the big step up, once you have qualified into the BAL, man, you better believe it's going to be another ball game. And we've seen people playing with their roster, adding players. sometimes even changing a little bit of the chemistry. And we've seen how it affects the 10 days of of the BAL that they're going through. So this is going to be a very important time for those teams, the 14 plus the wild card, to get ready, because we just know the road to BAL and the BAL are completely different.
So let's start because in Division West, Al-Ahli Libya, they were the crown champions.
Mm,
They stayed undefeated. What we saw last year with the Al-Ahli Tripoli, right, is that they were the first team to ever go through the qualification process from the start, and then they went all the way to lift the trophy. And then they go ahead and lose in their final to now Al-Ahli Libya, as they're going to be called in the BAL. That was surprising at first, but I guess not surprising that they were able to go all the way, even though they faced a completely different set of contenders out in the West. And how do you think they managed to get it done? I mean, they were really impressive throughout.
yeah, and let me just go back. Last year was amazing for Al-Ahli. You know what? I just don't want to sound a little crazy, but I was doubting them until we get to the finals. They play in Rwanda. They had APR, big time team, a lot of huge budget playing at home, and the way they play was completely different. They didn't really have a rim protector or anything like that. They were not that athletic. Um, but they kept on going, and they won it all. So this year, when I looked at them, I had a different eye. They play the same type of basketball. There's something with Al-Ahli is they have a true philosophy on the court. They play a certain type of basketball, and everybody bites to it, which makes them look great. And a lot of teams don't take that into account. But chemistry, how long you guys have been together, is so important, and they look ready. I mean, was there any competition for them? And during that Elite 16, I'm asking you, was there any competition for them? It seemed like they won everything by 15, 20 points.
Well, I mean, there were certainly competitions. Fintech Knights would
Mm,
definitely count as competition. JCA, who they played in the final, would count as competition, especially when you look at their rosters. But their team concept, which seems to override individuality somewhat.
right.
They have a very strong team philosophy. I think the addition of John Jordan to Al Ahly Benghazi was surprisingly good. He came up big in the finals, but yeah, they certainly had competition. They were tested. That some critics have said over time that the division qualification in the West has always proved stronger than the East. I'm not sure that it was the case this year,
Mm,
but in
hmm.
years gone by, the West has certainly been a little bit tougher. So the fact that they were able to come through the West and
Right.
convincingly so undefeated just speaks to maybe there wasn't competition and maybe they just that much better than everybody else in the BAL qualifiers.
Well, I like what you said when you said that the team concept seems to always take over individualities, and we've seen it. One thing is when you have Sadi on the court. Sadi could have been the MVP last year. I'm not saying that anything about the actually MVP. Boissy had an amazing BL, but Sadi was the heart. To me, Sadi was the heart of the team. You can see defensively the way he communicates, started every game, the best offensive rebounder on his team, one of the best rebounder in the whole league, playing the wing position. I don't even know he's a one or a two. It's even hard to give him a position on the court because he does so many things. But he was the heart and soul of that team on both ends. And I think that when you keep a player like that, you just know you're gonna have the right philosophy because he's pushing everybody ahead. What I was amazed this year is, what they get some new players. Kaba was there, Alpha Kaba was there. They got a few new guys, but they kept on playing the same type of basketball, which is half court basketball. They put pressure on you. And by the way, one of the best thing pressuring the full court press is hard to beat. You can see second quarter when they start to pressing, they have that zone press. It's hard to beat, and once they start pushing, it goes by very, very fast. But the half court basketball, the passing, the first, when you look at the final against JCA, the first play, they scored the first basket after 6 passes and no dribble. That's the first play of the game. 6 passes. How many times you see a team passing the ball 6 times before scoring? I'm saying on the continent. So the team is just ready. We're talking about Jordan. Jordan was a key component, probably the best player on the FUS team, who was impressive the first year they came. He's coming with a lot more experience. Play with DRC, by the way. He's got his passport, so play with the national team. I like him on the court. I think there's still some question about how you want to use him. Do you want to use him as a primary ball handler, as a point guard, or you want him off the ball, using his athletic ability? But there's not much to say when you look at Al-Ahli. They were just ready to play.
How much of this team do you think they'll keep? I mean, Marcos Knight, he led the team in scoring at 18.7 points per game. I think one of the surprise packages was Soufiane Ahmad. His
Yep.
17.5 points and his 17.8 efficiency. I think he just took a step up and, kind of filled the role that you're used to seeing Nassim Badrouche do on the Libyan national team. They usually use the Sadi Badrouche 1-2 punch in their backcourt, but Hamad just trying to take a little bit more responsibility, both from the 3-point line and the way that he attacked the rim. I think he took a little jump up, and he's definitely benefited from a year of competition in the BAL and in all the other competitions he's been in.
You said it, and I'm looking at my notes. Ahmed, by the way, was amazing. I mean, I've never seen. I mean, the guy is the quickest reaction in fast break. He had so many open dunks, but his reaction is the way he participated on the glass. And we saw a glimpse at the BA, but he didn't get much playing time. But we just saw that he was ready to get on the court. But it's true that during the Elite 16, he was amazing. I'm looking at the stats: 17 points in 23 minutes. That is just
Yeah.
amazing. But when you look at the whole team, and nobody's playing more than 30 minutes. Everybody's around 20 to 25 minutes. Zoo, 8 points, 17 minutes. Guys just come in and have an impact. Knight, 19 points. I mean, he shot 60% from the 3-point line. And it was probably around 57, 58%, but I rounded up at 60%. Coming off the bench, we're talking about, and bringing some punch. It was just the team was ready, the concept, but the coaching also was right in there. And there are many players we can talk about. The Croatian guy Zubcic playing,
Yes.
the forward position. You just can see the basketball IQ. Only need a couple of dribbles to get to his position, understand team concept, passing the ball, shoot the three. How many times he had lobs in the paint and score even without dribbling the ball? The team was doing good, but so many guys already. It's hard to see what they want to improve, because last year they played the same type of basketball. If there's one thing, and I'm just putting this out there, they have no rim protector. If Alpha Kaba is not on the court, they don't have a rim protector. And I think that the BA, what we've learned the last 5 years, got more and more athletic and more physical. Even, when you get to the finals, referees don't want to call fouls. So you need to have that athleticism, protecting the rim, lob threats that allows you to get a easy 2-pointers. So the question is, are they going to bring an athletic center, even though they didn't have one last year, or they're going to keep the team the way it was?
The one thing I will say, just to carry on with your point, is that I think that the Libyan teams have showcased their best template for recruitment. They are almost ruthless with the way that they go about choosing players that either fit their system or give them a bump up, in terms of whether they choose centers or guards. And then, it seems that they get their foreigners or their signed professionals to buy into a sixth man role. Jean-Jacques Boissy was playing sixth man the entire season, and he picked up a BAL MVP. The coaching staff or the coaches they choose understand Libyan basketball. They buy into the philosophy, and then the players just back that up, and then they get their signed professionals to just play their role to perfection, and they sign well. So no matter who they go with, whether they upgrade or not, because they also seem to have their recruitment staff and the way they go about it, their assistant coaching, their benches seem to make really good choices in terms of the professionals that they bring in. And I think they have been the best, and that's how they got the championship last year. I mean, the change, taking Dion Thompson out and bringing in Fabian White, that was probably the move that prompted and got Al-Ahli triply across the line and got them that championship.
And you know what? It's a great comparison. Jean-Jacques Boissier and Knight. That's probably how you can set it tonight to come off the bench, averaging 19 points, 60% from the 3-point line. Jean-Jacques Boissy was an amazing player for the whole competition. Was solid on both ends, and you said it. There's a way that they recruit. There's a way that when you look at those players individually, you might even have question of how they're going to impact the game. And you know what? Last year was a question about Jean-Jacques Boissy. How was he going to be able to impact the game playing outside of Senegal? Even though, throughout the year he went to a couple of places, but that was Al-Ahli is a disciplined place. It's a more of a basketball place the way we know it, right? And he fits right in there. And Jean-Jacques, I fell in love with Jean-Jacques Boissy last year. I thought his attitude was right coming off the bench, being positive with his teammates. He was super active on both ends. But and from time to time, you have to allow Jean-Jacques Boissy to be Jean-Jacques Boissy, but because that's what makes him spectacular and amazing. When he has those moments, when he starts making his shots, you got to let him take the extra shot. And coach was handling it the right way, was communicating with him, but sometimes he got benched for a few minutes. And I thought his response was positive because every time he got up the court, he came with that incredible energy that he always had. And he showed his best version at the right time on the right team, which got him a championship, right? Which got him an MVP. He won everything that year, and now he's in the G League. So this was probably the best example ever at the BAL of a players, wanting to change ecosystem and adapt him to a new coaching style.
Well, I think we've just exhausted most of our Al-Ahli conversation. Let's move across to Division East and let's talk about the winners right there. Nairobi City Thunder, what they did in front of their 5,000 capacity home crowd, picking up the championship in the division for a second time. They were electric, and they did. It was no surprise what they did, and I think what happened for Coach Bradley Gibbs, if we go back to last year's BAL, when he started to lean in on his all homegrown roster, and you remember the change that he made, and I call it the death lineup, especially when you go with Odero and Adera on the court at the same time, and then you add a little bit of that experience with Majok, who's already played with them in the qualifiers last year. But when you have Odero and Adera, that is where I think Ibs always wins, and whoever slots in alongside those two guys, they just seem to do outstandingly well. And then you have to mention Tyler Ongwe, always just doing what's necessary on both ends of the floor. Whether you want him to light up a 3-point line or find him some shots, he just does what's absolutely required from him, and he leans into his leadership on the floor and is really good two-way
Yeah.
skill set.
Yeah, and I don't know how you felt about it, but last year when I watched NCT, it seems like the team started to play a little bit too late. They got into their rhythm, into their vibe, just a little too late. It took them about three to four games, and we started to see their full potential. You said it. There's so much electricity in those players. They're so athletic. The fastest fast break ever. We used to learn you got to run the court in 5 seconds. And I'm telling you that NCT team runs the court in 4 seconds. They're super fast with the ball in their hands, but they're also super fast off the ball and with the ability to finish close to the rim because they're putting a lot of pressure. It's not just one guy running. They're running packs. You know what I'm saying? There's like two or three guys running at the same time, putting so much pressure. I was like I said, I don't like to say disappointed, but I felt like we started to discover their personality a little bit too late. And we've seen in the BL in the past that teams that do trust the the backbone, the guys who play the road to BL from time to time have proved that they can have an impact in the final stage. And NCT was definitely one of those players. I like the fact that they're coming back with the same players. Ongwe was solid last year. Struggled a little bit to score at some point because he had so much pressure offensively. Odero, ball in his hand. There was that one game I cannot remember. I think it was the last two games. I think he already had 20 points at half. Odero was amazing. Looking at Latrus Pira, for those who remember that player who played for the Knicks, for the Warriors and all that, but capable to shoot, mid-distance jump shot, finish in the paint, dunk on people. Adera comes off the bench. He came off the bench last year. This year had a little bit more playing time as a starter, ball in his hand, but they're so dynamic, moving offensively, that I thought they looked great. I like that they brought Majok is always a plus. You know what, Majok never gets old. Majok is like Mutombo, until I don't know how many more years he can play, but it looks like he's a useful starter. He can definitely come off the bench because with all the experience that he has, I don't think he's a guy that's going to cause a problem coming off the bench. Last year, I felt like he played too many minutes. And you could see it. You just got to respect somebody who's 6'10", 6'11". They need to get rest at least once or twice every quarter. But Majok is as solid as anybody coming with a lot of experience. And That man, Thomas. I like what they brought. They brought in another big man, Thomas. Can do it all with the ball. Very interesting. Uh, the team qualified with a good team. They have things that they can change. And let me put it out there. And I'm looking at my Cameron, the American point guard. That's my, it's a question mark, and it's just a question mark because what we see at the BL is, first of all, defensively, you don't want to have any mismatch, and sizes are
Yeah.
always subject to mismatch when you play basketball. So it's an important position. The second thing is that when I look at the nature of the team, I would go with somebody that can run with the ball and make quick decisions, because when you got guys running the break, you got to make quick decision with the ball. But also looking at somebody that can slow down and have an impact half court basketball, because that's what's going to happen next. You're going to have to play half court basketball. It's playoff basketball. The BL is playoff basketball, half court. So I'm looking at somebody that can control the ball a bit more and get his baskets.
I think I like what you said, and in terms of Chase Adams, and I think that's he ran at the point, and then last year they had Iroegbu at the point in the BAL, and he offered them something as well.
I like I
That
like I like Yorigbu. I like him.
and just to think where that might be a position that they have a look at, and like you said, a strong backcourt and a strong floor leader in the BAL is absolutely necessary. Sometimes you have to lean in on experience. What we've seen from Nairobi City Thunder is that this is their second bite of the cherry. There was a lot of improvement in a lot of areas. Coach Bradley Ebbs also showcased that he could go deeper into his bench. I think he made good choices all around. But I think the play of Odero, he was probably my MVP for the entire Division East qualifiers. He was almost unstoppable at times. He had 32 points against Ferroviario de Beira. That's what you were talking about in that semifinal. But that game-winning dunk that he had over Nino Dim in the qualifiers when they first picked up that win. That just showcased the ice that he has in his veins, but also why they call him KQ. Why he's the Kenyan Airways. He's got the ability to leap up off the floor. But it's not just that he relies on his athleticism. He's got good touch around the rim. He's a true triple level scorer, and he showcased all of that throughout tournament play. I don't think there was a defender that they could put in front of him. And even if you try to double him, the NCT made really good choices. They shot the ball at just over 40% and making over 13 makes, so 12.8 makes from the 3-point line. Their shooting was electric. They had 15 threes against the Joburg Giants in the final. At just they made
Hmm.
they made 15 or 29. That's just over 50%. And in a big time game, that's what all you can ask from your team. Great ball movement, make the open shots. They did that. If they do that, they might go far in 2026. But they certainly gave their home fans a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's an advantage to play at home, but they play the right type of basketball. Consistency, continuity with NCC when we talk about coaching staff is super important. Even more for a player like you just mentioned, Odero is very important because it takes some time to understand what he does. And I'm not saying that he warms up quickly, but from time to time you might question his decision making because he goes so fast. He dribbles the ball 5, 6, 7 times. There are a lot of fakes, but also physically he jumps out there, and you might question: is he going to be able to finish this play? Is he going to get a layup? How is he going to score? But once you let him work with the ball, like you just said, 15, 20, 30 points, he's almost unstoppable. If you play defense on Odero, you have to have a specific guy on him that makes the right decision because he goes by you quickly, but also you have to have 4 guys and 2 guys, the ones that are just by him, just aware that they need to help, or he's going to go off with 20, 25, 30 points. He's solid. The guys like Odero are the guys that once they get into the BAL and they get under the right spotlight, you just don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to affect their future. you know I'm glad that NCT has been able to keep this core of guys, those 3 guys: Ongwe, Odero, and Adera. But what I'm saying, when you have a player like Odero at his peak of his career, playing that well, the future is bright. So definitely a player that I'm looking forward to see. You mentioned, I just want to say something. You mentioned Iroegbu, and I just that's a player that I have enjoyed watching at the BL. He kind of unfortunately didn't have the BL that we were expecting last year. I think he was slow to start, didn't have the shooting touch that he was expecting. but I just like the attitude, the effort. He's got the skills. He proved it in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up at some point on the roster.
Well, if they can keep Majok, because if you recall, in last year, the qualifiers, they had Haruna Majok and Irwegbo as some of their core, right? And then when we got to the BAL, Majok then decided to go to play under coach Libas Faye and Wilde Dakar. But I think that if they can keep him this time around, because he does fill and play well with the team. You don't feel like there's been any sort of adjustment. Majok fits well in most teams, but they really enjoy having him around. They have great backup centers. I think we didn't see Ogechi in the BAL last year. He's been a core part of their team for a while. So seeing him in the qualifiers, hopefully we'll see him I'm talking about Derek Ogechi, we'll see him in the BAL as well. And I think they've got a nice mix. I think we're going to be we're going to be in for some high octane entertainment depending on what conference they're in. And NCT is definitely a team that we need to look out for. But I think now time for us to just look at those are the winners. Let's look at the teams that didn't quite go undefeated throughout competition. And let's start with JCA because we haven't spoken about their coach, and their coach is of course Stephen Konate, and he becomes the first player or first person to qualify to the BAL as both a player and now as a coach. But he did it. His team looked really good. They went 6 games
Yeah.
undefeated. They only fell at the final hurdle. They've got a lot in that team identity that they can leverage. And I think you talked about. I want to talk about rotation. He kept his players all around 20 minutes. He went 13 or 12 deep. Everybody got court time, and it's very rare that a coach can do that, but also pick up wins. And so they look like they could also cause some problems. Will the JCA Kings?
Yeah, and Q, I just want to say that I admire your patience because I know you want to talk about the Giants. So yeah, I believe you keeping those, you keeping your hometown team for last, so you can, we can really talk about it. But let's jump into JCA and Coach Konate. Yeah, the story was on the court and off the court, which is a great thing. I always think when I see a young coach like Konate, he's a young coach. He's an older player, but he's a young coach. There's always a great impact because he still has basketball in his legs. He still remember how it feels. He was at the BL not long ago, so he's coming with that demeanor in practice. It's hard for a player to be as a coach who play at that level. By the way, you're not gonna fake an injury. You're not gonna fake this and that because you make a transition from being a player to a coach. Actually, you make a transition from being somebody that shares his emotion to somebody who needs to manage people's emotion. And he's not quite there at the moment. You can see when he coaches, he was all there, very, I don't want to say aggressive, but he was active on the sideline, giving the right tempo to his team. So it just had the right effect on his team. He did an amazing job because, qualifying so hard. And by the way, it came up with a huge upset that we're going to talk about, I'm sure, in the semifinal. But his leadership was amazing, and he's got the right team. When I look at JCA, I don't know about you, but he reminds me of FAP. A few years ago, when I forget who they beat in the quarter, I think they beat in the quarterfinals, where Coach Enyege was there with FAP Cameroon. But they have that backbones of local players. They have that roughness. They play with tough guards. Ka, Kone, all those guys. Cisse did a great job, but they have a bunch of players that are aggressive on both ends of the court. And even if they don't have those international guys on the court, you can always expect a resilient team that's going to crash the glass, going to play tough defense, going to foul hard like back in the 90s. Some of those fouls were very, very hard. You don't drive against JCA or FAB back in the days. You don't drive
No,
and
you
just
don't.
expect an open layup. There's going to be a body, and the body doesn't need to be 205 or 210. Sometimes one of those guys are like 180. They're like 6 foot, 6'1", but they're coming at you. So a team with a lot of personality, a lot of roughness, they're definitely gonna have to make an upgrade. We're talking about upgrade and changing teams. I think it's a team that's gonna have to go and get a. I mean, I like Cisse with the ball in his hands, but you need to have guys who can just flat out score the ball, score. No, nothing. Maybe just a screen, but just find a way to get to the basket or make an outside shot. Because once you get to the BAL, those defenses are so hard to beat that you got to have those guys who have plenty of skills.
So they had Maxi Shamba, they had Andrew Edogi as two of their signees. Mike Nuga at the point guard position, the Canadian Nigerian. He was outstanding for them. He really did get them across the line with some crunch play against in that semifinal. And then I think the fact that they were able to recruit Mahaman Koulibaly, based on the year that he's had. First of all, in the BA, I would start Malian a little bit earlier, but then taking Mali all the way to the finals of AfroBasket and getting on top of the all, getting in the all tournament team. He's had an amazing year, and maybe a little bit quiet in the qualifiers, but did all he had to do. I think what's improved from him dramatically is his ability to stretch the floor, and it makes him almost unguardable because he was already one of their best players going downhill, putting the ball on the floor and attacking the rim. Doesn't make a bad decision, or very rarely makes a poor decision when attacking. And now the fact that he's able to space the floor with a little bit more confidence, he might just take another step up. If he's a part of the BAL in 2026, he's definitely going to be one of the players to look out for. So there's a lot that he can work with. You talked about Kra and the kind of tournament he had. Cisse was also really great, but there's a lot that he can work with there. But they take on the identity of their coach, and Konate was a hard-nosed defender. You know that he was two-way, wasn't easy to get by, knew how to use his length and athleticism, and some of that identity has definitely spilled over into his team because they don't take no for an answer on the defensive end.
Yeah, and by the way, I've never seen Konate smile. I just want to say this, but let's talk about Koulibaly, and so important with a team like JCA. You got to find your African players, your international African players. You got to be right when you choose them, because you just know that financially, this is really where it happens to you. If you get the right international African players, you can really upgrade your team. You might not have the same shot when you look outside of the continent. So Koulibaly, as you just mentioned, blew out the screen last year, playing amazing with his local team from Mali. He's probably the player who's got the most pressure on him. And you know what? If we would have had a rookie of the year at the BL, I'm just thinking about this, he would have been the rookie of the year. For somebody who never played at that level, I've rarely seen a player capable to finish both hands, right and left, in crowded spaces, making shots, contested shots, things that normally comes with your experience at a high level. When you start understanding how the defense moves, that there's going to be a second defensive player, all of that he was doing throughout his first year, and I thought it was amazing. But now the pressure is on him because his first year was so amazing that we expect 15 to 20 points every time. It wasn't the case during, as you just mentioned, it wasn't the case during the Elite 16. But we know the kind of superpower. And when I say, for people who know Koulibaly, physically, the athleticism, as good as it gets, strong and powerful, there's something a little savage about him. The kind of kid that's been playing a lot on the street, 3-on-3 and 4-on-4, is that he doesn't take a foul into account to finish. He'll finish regardless of a foul or not. And I like that
Yeah.
in him. Um, um, Things that he has been improving, 3-point shots, spreading the court, all of that comes into, getting more and more experience playing 5-on-5. But he's going to have to step up big at the BL, because he's going to be a starter on a good team with a coach who has experience. So mentally, that's where I'm looking at him. Is he going to be able to upgrade? Is he going to be able to evolve in his second year in a completely different setting, not playing with his home team, playing in the BAL with all that pressure?
That's going to be one of the questions, and there's going to be a lot of work being done. But I think JCA again will be part of the playoffs. They should be part of the playoff picture when we conclude in the BL in 2026. Let's move on now to where I wanted to come back, and you said I'll be waiting. But let's go ahead, Jacques, because hey, team number four, they make quite an impact. A new team on the block, especially in the South African circles, the Johannesburg Giants. They announced themselves early in the Zone 6 qualifiers, and they continued that form in the Elite 16, and they get themselves the automatic qualifiers, and they did so on the back of, and we've got to talk about Coach Floshin Gwenya. This is the third time he's qualified. Done it with the Cape Town Tigers twice, has been Division East champion. This time gets his team across the line, but man, oh man, they did incredibly well for first timers in the Elite 16 qualifiers.
Yeah, and that is a serious project out of South Africa. You know what? I always loved the Cape Town Tigers. I thought that they had an amazing personality, and he came from outside the court. They had something special about them. I thought the branding was amazing. They sometimes disappointed us, and sometimes we were like, wow, they actually got that win. But I feel like the Giants is a more of a homegrown kind of decision. Where people like Coach Florch, who gaining experience with the Tigers, who's done an amazing job. To me, last year he could have been Coach of the Year, by the way, and it's been resilience. When we talk about continuity, but a lot of things to like about the Giants. First of all, I like the guys that they brought in. And you know more about them than I know, but Nino Dim, I thought was super solid. Joshua was another player that is, kind of like the undersized forward. It's hard to exactly, are they wings, are they forward? They're in between, but they're solid defensively. They build strong. They're not scared. So those two guys were impressing me. Then they brought, the OGs. Prince Lowe is back on the bus. Shooting his three. Sibanyoni. And you and I were talking about Sibanyoni a lot, many times last year. He had, the expectation was high as one of the best ever rebounder at the BAL. Not best as consistently being the best, but being one of the best as one every 2 or 3 games, he's going to get you 15 rebounds. And if he get consistent playing time, if he keeps himself on the court, he might even, average more than 10. But I thought that last year he got into the games and wasn't aggressive defensively, wasn't rebounding the ball, wasn't, positioning himself to do the right thing on both ends of the court. So it was good to see him back. Um, a team that's going to have to recruit, because we just know a team from South Africa, first of all, it's a great place for anybody on this planet to go and spend a few weeks or a few months. It's easy to recruit to come and play in South Africa. They have a huge edge when it comes to recruiting, but also is how long they're going to be able to keep those guys in to get them ready for the next level. So question on their end, but very happy to see that somebody else is coming with a different project, and a project that looks actually very solid in terms of a long-term project.
Yeah, they went local all the way, almost entirely, and the recruitment from Coach Floss just to sign Diu Deng. Diu Deng, of course, was a part of the Cape Town Tigers twice when they qualified, so a player that he knows well. Used him for 23 minutes, and he led them in scoring with 19.8 points per game. He's athletic and is electric, and sometimes you can question his shot making decisions, but you can't question his just electricity and ability to
Yeah,
score the
but
ball on the floor.
can I want to say this when it comes to scoring nowadays. I think that's this is an era where scoring comes with a sacrifice, and with borderline decision making, because the game goes by so fast, and also those players are so skilled. So the extra long range Steph Curry 3-point shot is no longer a surprise to anybody. So you just mentioned in Judeng, but I think that you get that 19 points because of that mentality. The question is, could he score in a different way when you slow down the game and you allow the defense to get in front of his face and all that? I think he's got to be a step faster in everything he does, and he's got to make critical decisions. Um, but it's very important. He's definitely the kind of guy that you need when you get to the BAL, because we're talking a bit earlier on about people who can flat out score the ball. And he's one of those guys. He's got long range. He's light on his feet. He's quick running the court. He's what you need at that position.
I really love when he puts the ball on the floor because he is supremely athletic. He has hang tap. His body control is elite, especially when he's in the air. You've seen his ability to finish with both hands. Just the one or two drives that you can question in a game, but largely when he does attack, he makes good decisions when he goes towards the rim. And if he attacks, he's coming away with either a foul or a finish. Uh, just I think the decision making on the 3-point shot sometimes, but like you said, it's something that you live with when you choose a player of his nature. And the gamble, I suppose, did pay off for Coach Flush because They qualify. They got some really consistent performances out of him, and the fact that he led the team in scoring is no surprise because that's an area that they need a flat out scorer. And I do think they'll make some adjustments going into the BAL for sure. They'll upgrade, especially in the guard position. We might see the addition of Sam Kelotele being recruited back in as a local guy because they're very strong with their recruitment around South African players. And then we will see the addition of bigger guards and more experienced bigs inside the paint, without a doubt. Sam Vincent is a part of their basketball operations as well in terms of the organization. So you can expect that they will up the recruitment, and we might see some surprises in some positions. We're
Yeah.
getting close to. I was just going to say we're getting a little bit close to the end of this. So let's go ahead and talk about the wild card because I think in many people's mind they should probably have been one of the top two teams in the Division East, but they fell short after an amazing block by Nkosinathi Sibanyoni in the semi-final to deny Yusufa Ndoye and Dar City a clear path. But they pick up the wild card, and Dar City are the fifth team that are going to be a part. I mean, the third team that are going to be a part of BAL 2026.
Yeah, Dar City, man, a lot of things to talk about that team, and I think they did a great job recruiting. They got great players all around the court. It was, I know Ashim to beat, and the first time I saw Ashim was back in Dallas around 2005 or 2004 when he came with a selection of African players to play a tournament in Dallas. So it was great to see him because we've seen him around the game at the BAL watching and all that, and just amazing to see a former NBA player deciding to come and join. I mean, and this is not, he wasn't playing basketball the day before. What I'm saying, I mean, you can always play with friends here and there, but deciding to jump and dive into the water. To participate, I think was just amazing, and I really enjoyed it. It's a team that one thing that happens that jumped into my eyes, I'm just saying, is their conditioning, the overall conditioning of the whole team. I'm talking as a team. I'm not talking about
Hmm.
individually. And when I talk about conditioning, I'm just not talking about physical conditioning, but mental conditioning. The way they were running the court, the way they were making decisions. There was something lacking in the team concepts. Things were a lot of one-on-one because those guys like Solo Diabate are just amazing players with so much experience. Putney, that is one of the best players we've seen at the BAL, but there was no continuity in the passing, in the movement of the ball, also in the variety of offense that they showed. I thought that there was a limitation that allowed the other team to take advantage. So you would see them taking advantage of because of the size, the athleticism, the experience, and then you would see that at some points they were just lacking energy. They were also lacking energy in terms of what is next in our play. They were looking at the ball, and they found themselves a couple of times, and during the final against JCA, where basically they stopped picking up the ball at like 4 minutes before the end of the quarter. They started to put pressure, and something that you always watch: if when the teams start putting pressure, that means that's what they have in terms of ability physically to sustain that pressure. Teams that go full court, for 40 minutes, you look at college basketball, that's what they have. That's the type of conditioning. When they started to put pressure on the ball, it was 4 minutes on the clock. And that is, I mean, that is you playing with the devil at that moment. And if it wasn't for, back-to-back steals, layup, and things like that, they would have lost that game by 10 points. So I'm just questioning, what has happening around the team. I'm just saying, I think that they can do more. I think they have everything to do more. I think they have great players. Yusundoy coming off the bench. He was playing with one of the best team last year. They got everything that they need, Putney and everything. But I just think that something was missing, and that's definitely what they would need to work on if they want to have an impactful BAL.
But here's my take, and said with all respect to everybody, it's they might be a little bit too old. They recruited a couple of veterans, and the average age of the team probably pushes up around the 30 mark and maybe 32, 33. Now, with that age of team, a certain style of basketball is going to come. So their pace slowed down a little bit. It was shown on the floor. but then you have to have players that can then slow the game down on both ends, and you gotta cut fast breaks from the other team, allow them to get into the half court because it's kind of veteran basketball where fast break basketball is taken away, and we've got to get into half court so we can control the amount of possessions and then see if we can maximize the possessions. When you have scoring like Nizri Zinzua and Solo Diabate's decision making and two bigs at the rim that can finish, then it makes a little bit of sense. And then partly chipping in wherever he can, whether he's overcut, attacking the rim, where he can use that 6'9" or 6'10" frame and his verticality to score, or just his ability to space the floor. But they do need a couple more pieces on the floor that can put more pressure to either change the tempo just a little bit so that they can put pressure on quicker guards, or their bigs have just got to and they have, I mean, on paper they have great bigs. Yusuf Ndoye, Hashim Thabit, on paper that front court should be unbeatable, but this just didn't prove that out because the pace of the game was a little bit too slow, and most teams and teams that play higher tempo games were able to take advantage of it. They only lost by 2, and like you said, it could have gone either way. That's where some of their veteran defensive playmaking, gambles here and there, shot making under pressure helped them a lot. But I think we might see a change in strategy. And of course, it must be said, they went ahead and got BAL Coach of the Year 2024, Coach Papi Gay, to come along and try to, direct his troops and rifle the troops. But ultimately, they do get to that spot, and
Hmm.
wild card is always tricky because they always teams on the other side. It could have been Spintek Knights from Ghana, with the tournament that they had. They're always strong cases for teams to be in the BAL, but after all consideration, they get it. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch them because they came with a lot of fervor. They came almost Cape Town Tigers style. They hosted in Dar. They signed big names. They qualified all the way to the Elite 16. They just didn't get past the last hurdle, but now they got to the last hurdle because 2026 we'll see them in the BAL. And I think they might be considered underdogs in this one. We'll see how it all rolls. But Jacques, we've said a
Yeah,
mouthful. Gotta say it. We've said a mouthful. And I think that's going to bring us to the conclusion of episode 1 of Wingspan Full Court Africa. We've started something special here. We're going to try to cover all of Africa with our wingspan wherever we can. But I think it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed every second of this moment.